Hi guys, welcome to season 1, episode 3 with the wonderful, I'm really looking forward to this conversation, with the wonderful Ms. Great Britain Classic for 2022-23, the wonderful Nicholl Moss. How are we?
Hello, very good, very good. Into the last 2 weeks of school holidays. So entertaining. I've got two young girls, so I'm busy entertaining them. Yeah, just 2 weeks to go till they go back to school. They're so ready for it.
Excellent.
Yes, am I.
If you're actually listening and not watching the YouTube version, then definitely go check out the YouTube version because Nicholl has shown up fully on brand, sash crown, the whole works.
Hang on, hang on.
Oh, what else? Anna GB. I mean, that's just you could screenshot that. That might actually be your screenshot for your thumbnail for the YouTube. That's
If
wicked.
something's worth doing, it's worth doing well, in my opinion.
And that's why you are the Ms. Great Britain Classic winner. Okay, so we're going to dive into this because I am fascinated by you sent me your bio over. I've got a ton of notes and what have you in front of me because your pageant history spans such a it's just such a wide variety of pageants that you've done. You've won over 100 titles in
Yeah.
total. Now that's going some because you're not old, so like that is really going some. It really is. So let's go back because we definitely need to dive into Miss Sexy Santa because that one made me smile, and that definitely made Saffron smile as well.
That would be a good springboard.
Yes, it would. Yeah, but I'm really fascinated to find out because obviously having spoken to Kat and to Charlotte and all this kind of stuff, and just listening to how people talk about pageants on how they were, I'm really fascinated to understand, what it was like back, when you were sort of 18, 19 competing. And we'll sort of go down a few rabbit holes where that's concerned, but there's a few key things that I want to understand as well. So let's go right back to day one, week one of your pageant stuff. How did you even find them in the first place? How did you stumble upon like the pageant world?
Okay. Well, as a family, our annual holiday, we used to go to Butlins. My mum had done that with her parents, and she did that with us. I'm one of three girls, and my mum was a single parent. So we used to go to Butlins every year as our big family holiday. So they were called, I think they're called resorts now, but they were called holiday camps back then. I'm taking them right back to the 70s. So I was born in 71.
Mhm.
So we went on the holiday and we just participated in everything. It was anything from, I'm trying to think, like the snooker competitions, fancy dress competitions. It was just part of the brochure of entertainment, part of the what you did. I
Mhm.
mean, they even had, like, obviously I never did it, but Novellies, glamorous grandmothers, mother and daughters. So I used to do all of those. It was part of not just me, but as a family,
Mhm.
that was part of the entertainment schedule. And that was something that we did. So if anybody remembers, I was the Cadbury Smash Martian advert from probably the late 1970s. That was my fancy dress outfit. So mum had made me a paper mache with tubes and foil, and I used to walk on. I looked like a Martian, but only because I couldn't actually move in it. I had a paper mache potato. So we loved it. We
Yeah.
loved all of that entertainment. And at the time, Butlins ran three big national beauty competitions. So the main one, or one of three, was the Butlins Holiday Princess. So that was in swimwear. They also had a lovely legs of Great Britain. And they also then had one which we would now call fashion wear, which was a fashion competition sponsored by various different companies. So it changed name from Miss She, which was a big magazine, Miss Alberta Balsam, Miss, is it Miss Country? Some, I don't know, something. It changed. So for me, growing up in that environment, moving from fancy dress, mother and daughter, and then moving into the holiday princess was just felt like a natural progression.
So it was something that
My
you
mum
were
had
just doing on
actually,
holiday. You
yeah,
just
yeah,
something you were
yeah,
doing on holiday, and was just a fun thing that was part of the activities of the site. Yeah.
yeah. My mum had actually done them when she was pregnant with both my sister Chantal and and me. So you could say
It got passed on.
unbeknownst to me, my first pageant was when my mum was pregnant with me. So it was just a natural progression, and we absolutely loved them. Now you did the weekly heat when you were there. If you won the weekly heat, you were invited back for an area, like a northern area final or a southern area final. And as part of your prize, you got a 3 or 4 day mini break. So we would win as a family, like another little holiday.
Mhm.
And if you won through to the finals of Lovely Legs and Holiday Princess, they would be 3 or 4 days together. So actually, we won another week's holiday to go back towards the end of the season that used to be around September.
Oh, cool.
And then if you got through in the northern or the southern area finals, you then went a third time, you won another little mini break, and you competed in the final where they had 20 finalists.
Got you. So uh, I want to ask some. I don't want us to go off on too much of a serious tangent just yet, but I do want to know. It's interesting the language and the terminology of Miss Lovely Legs and that kind of thing. So was obviously pageants get a lot of stick from back then because of all male judging panels, the kind of objectification of women, and or dare I say, perceived objectification of women. So did you feel like that was a thing back then, or were you just enjoying was it a thing? Was it when looking back, was it objectification? Was it just kind of, was it done in poor taste, or were you just having fun and it really wasn't on anyone's radar because you were just enjoying it as part of the holiday? How did that kind of come about?
Well, firstly, I don't think I've ever done a pageant or competition where it's been an all male judging panel, ever.
Interesting.
It's definitely more female based now. It was probably more mixed back then. It was usually a combination of either local sponsors or kind of like we have now, businesses that would be affiliated. So it might be a local hairdressers that were giving, some haircuts as a free prize, or a local dress salon. So usually the manageress or the owner of those were there. So just, I don't think I've ever done a competition where it's been complete male judging panel. Secondly, I mean, I started in the Butlins competitions. I absolutely loved them, and for us, it was just a natural progression. It was part of the curriculum, if you like. I mean, we didn't have to do them, but we enjoyed them. Um, and it was just part of the program. I then also did a lot of local competitions, which probably touches more on the questions that you have. So anything from kind of local towns, like I'm from the northeast. Each local village, each local town always had a beauty queen.
Mhm.
So you would then go on the float at kind of the annual float celebration. What do they call them?
Like
Festival.
carnivals and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, like carnival queens. And then also in the, I think probably late 80s, most local councils also had them. So you had like Miss Easington District, Miss Tyneside. Most bars and nightclubs had them, which is
Mm.
probably leading into more your questions of, did I feel objectified? I certainly didn't feel that way. It was a choice that I made. I loved being up there. I loved all of the girls that I met. I'm still friends with some of the girls that I competed with. And it was just a great experience. I made great friends. I did, win prizes, had great experiences, and it was just a great life.
So do you think then the the whole objectification piece, do you think that was actually really sort of born out of people who don't understand pageants and then just assumed that's what is happening, how women feel and all that kind of stuff, when in actual fact, really the women are doing it because they enjoy the process, meeting the other girls, doing all that kind of stuff, and it's just sort of been kind of blown out of proportion by people who don't really look at it through the lens of actually, because to quote you, you said, I really enjoyed it. I went looking for these to go and take part in. So therefore it was a choice. No one made you go in there to quote unquote feel objectified by men, or to be ogled over or sleazed over or what have you. You went and did them because you chose as your own choice to go and pursue the pageant hobbies.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a difficult thing to understand unless you are in this world. I competed between the ages of 15 to 25. And then I came back 25 years later to Miss Great Britain. And I had no idea that it still existed to the level that it really does. It's a very hidden but very active community. And there are marked differences, absolutely, from when I did them back in the 80s and early 90s to now. Now it is definitely much more about the platforms. So it gives you a platform to discuss the things that are important to you, changes that you would like to make, charity fundraising. And it's definitely more of an active, small society, but it is very hidden. So I think unless you're in it, it's difficult to understand actually what it really is about is female empowerment.
Mhm.
No, the audience are not sleazy men. The audience are, in the vast majority, it is female. It's a female space. Men are welcome, yourself included. There's boyfriends, there's some husbands, some fathers, but generally it is mainly a female space.
And was that the same?
Stepping into.
Was that the same with you being 15 to 25? Did you find that that was the same kind of dynamic?
Yeah, yeah, I would say so. There
Yeah.
was definitely more, if I was going to say male involvement, there was probably more male judges. But again, they were associated, they weren't just randoms picked. They generally had something to do with either the organisation that were running it, the sponsors. But now it's very much about female empowerment. Majority of girls, women that go on the stage, contrary to probably what people would assume, actually say they lack confidence.
Yeah.
And they do this as a way of pushing their own boundaries, facing their own fears, and actually coming out the other side, finding that it was a real life-changing event for them. And that it really did bring them confidence. The fact that they got up on the stage in swimwear or fashion wear, and that they spoke to judges. We do a lot of interviews. So we did interviews again back in the 1980s in a slightly different way. You always did them on stage, but it definitely trains you to be able to publicly speak confidently, to be confident about your own voice, your own thoughts, your own opinions. So I personally feel it's a very empowering female space that I'm absolutely delighted that I found it again.
So talk us through your journey then. So you went from let's go, I suppose, like, I guess the nucleus where it started was obviously Butlins, inside your mum's tummy, and then out and competing. Went from there to I suppose a local level. When did you really start to find your stride? What was the point in which you were kind of, because to pack in over 100 titles within that 10-year period, that's a lot. That's 10 a year. So I mean,
It's a little bit different then to now. So then you could pretty much do a pageant every couple of weeks. Most, other than Miss UK, Miss England, which both went to Miss World, and then the qualifier for Miss Universe, nothing else was contracted. So you would win your prizes, but you were free to go and enter another title. So whereas now it really is, the Miss Great Britain Classic for me was a whole year's build up to it, and then I've absolutely loved my, I think I'm about 10 months into my reign. So it's actually a 2-year process. So yes, when I say to you, you know, I won over 100 titles, you're like, how could that possibly have happened? Because it was just a very quick turnaround. I went, so I started with the Butlins competitions, which were big national competitions. I finally won the Butlins Holiday Princess when I was about 22, 23.
And that's a
So
big one, wasn't it? Back
yeah,
then, that was a big pageant. You know, if you're putting it in terms of like the scale and production and what have you, that was a big title back then, wasn't it?
yeah. It was possibly the only one that I ever really felt nervous in, because I really, really wanted it. Really meant something to me because, oh, I'm going to get emotional. It really meant something to me because we were a Butlins family. My eldest sister actually went to be a redcoat at Butlins from the age of 17. Then she was press officer there. My brother-in-law, they met at Butlins. So we are very connected to that brand, if you like, just as, you know, we love it. I've taken my girls there. They also love it. So to win that one really, really meant a lot to me, because it was more than just winning it. It was kind of what it meant. And also in combination with winning the Butlins Holiday Princess, you also won the title of Miss Global Laurel, which was the official pin-up for the Royal Marines. So you actually, again, with that one, unlike many of the others, you actually did get a whole year of kind of prizes, if you like. You know, I spent my year with the Royal Marines, so I did things like I went to charity kind of forces boxing matches in London. I did charity skydives with them in Cyprus. I went on night shoots. I threw hand grenades, sniper rifles, you know, things that money can't buy, really. So it was an amazing experience. So that's why that one kind of was double-sided benefit to me of why it meant so much.
That's awesome. So like just the experiences that the pageant world has been able to give you that, you know, not a lot of other people would be able to experience is
Yeah.
it was fantastic. So once you got the Butlins title, did you then call it quits, or did you carry on and continue straight away?
I still competed, say, from 15 to 25-ish. So I was Miss Queen of the World England. So I went to Germany for that one. I was Miss Globe Wales. So I went to Turkey for the international final of that one. And back then, 25, I kind of felt I had aged out. I could have continued. But for me at the time, I was also modeling and doing promotions, doing beauty pageants. And it was kind of at 25, I thought, I think I need something, you know, you can't be a model forever. Well, now you can, but it was a bit different then. So I was looking for something more of a career than a job, if you like. So I completely changed what I did. I went off and I got myself a job as a mortgage advisor, and then qualified as a financial advisor. So I went into the world of finance, and I worked for a couple of different companies. I worked in the city. I was actually sales director for a very large brokerage in the city towards the end of my city career before I had children. So I've had two very, very different and very distinct careers.
But do you think that that obviously that early start of, you know, not having to, choosing to put yourself out there helped you then go and survive, you know, in the city and what have you, with the people then you were then being given access to and all that kind of things?
Absolutely. I went for my very first interview to be a mortgage advisor. And I did the interview and I just answered the question. You know, it's sales, you're advising people, but it's also a sales job. I just answered the interview questions as he asked them to me, unbeknownst to me. You know, when you're asked about, you know, how do you feel, you know, if a client was to say no, how do you handle rejection? And I was like, well, you know, I don't take it personally. And that really comes from the pageants. You know, ultimately it is personal choice, personal preference of that judging panel. you could change the judging panel, have the exact same show, the same girls, and actually get a different result. So
Yeah.
it isn't like an exact science. It is personal preference, if you like, which is why they have a panel of judges, not just one or two. So yeah, kind of early on when we had started doing, because it wasn't just myself, there was my older sister Chantal as well. Mum had said to us, you have to accept that you probably will lose more than you will win, and you have to be a good loser before you can be a worthy winner. So you have to take it with grace, reflect on, if there's anything you can improve, or just go, look, it just wasn't my day. So that transferable skill, and also the interview as well. I was very comfortable with public speaking because I'd been on stage so many times. I'm used to people just asking me random questions that you just have to then think quickly on your feet and answer. So yeah, being able to not take rejection personally, being able to orate very well, that all stood me in really good stead. When I worked in the city, we had a big contract with one of the really large investment banks. So we started off doing seminars, and I was actually the one who hosted the seminar in front of 300 investment bankers in the middle of the city. And the part that I loved the most was their Q&A at the end, where people just asked you random questions, because I knew my job, I knew what I was talking about, and I would it was almost a provable point that I do know what I'm talking about. You can ask me anything, I'm not scared. So those skills that I learned definitely transferred to my later life, and have helped me throughout my life, I would say.
I think it's such an underappreciated benefit of competing in pageants. So, I'm lucky in the fact that I get to see a lot of this play out, and that it always surprises and impresses me when you have, because it's not only, people think you just got to answer a question on stage. Well, that's not the case at all. It's the one, you're really nervous because you're, generally speaking, if you're going to be interviewed, you're going to be interviewed on stage in front of the crowd, you're generally down to either the last 5 or 10. So there's that added pressure,
Yeah.
coupled with adrenaline and all the rest of it. But to be able to, and Charlotte Clemmy did this very, very well, is to be asked a question and be able to just recall, well, not only be asked the question, but to have it processed, think about how you can turn that into, yeah, just straightening up the crown.
It's always wonky. I'm not going to pick it.
Hey, there's something about halos and wonky crowns. They kind of go together.
Does it say something about me?
Absolutely not. No, the being able to take on board what's been asked, being able to deliver an answer that still says what you actually want to say, and put it in, a decent order, is such a difficult skill, because it's completely different to learning something to deliver than it is to to being asked a question and coming up with an answer. And I think, certainly for women who perhaps struggle with their confidence, because you hear that over and over again. I ask a lot of girls when we're in the master classes, or if we're actually, why did you come to pageants in the first place? Confidence. I suffer with anxiety, this
Yeah.
kind of thing. And the thing with public speaking is or overcoming the fear of it is actually doing the reps. And within the pageant world, you're doing the reps regularly, so you're able to get better. You're able to understand what's going on in your body, understand your breathing, understand where you're panicking and or not panicking, and then be able to go and deliver an answer. And even just coming back over and over, year in, year out, to compete, like the difference in people's presentation skills and public speaking skills is ridiculous. It's so good.
But it's like anything, the more you practice, the more comfortable you are with it, and the more skilled you are. And that's that, there are no shortcuts. Just practice. For me, for kind of my interview, my platform, I would drive along in my car just talking away to myself. It is about acknowledging the question that you've been asked, but then being able to then move that onto the subject that you actually want to talk about.
Hmm.
And it is a skill. It's definitely a skill.
Yeah.
And as you say, to see the journey that a lot of girls go on, whereby at their first pageants, whether it's, you know, their stage present, their walk, their interview, and to see really them come out of their shell.
Mm.
Um, and it is definitely a kind of feel the fear and do it anyway. So I'm amazed, even I'm amazed at how many girls, how many women say they actually do it because they're not confident. And this is a way of them building themselves up. Um, and it's, you know, it's just a wonderful supportive sisterhood. It really is.
Yeah, the interesting thing is that before me and Saffron took over, we obviously were there a couple of years beforehand. So Saf there as a coach, and then obviously when she was handing over and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and chatting to some of the girls and just asking, are you coming back and all that kind of stuff. Particularly the next morning when you see everybody at breakfast and what have you, are you coming back? And yeah, we're coming back and all that kind of stuff. And I remember watching. I won't name them, but I remember like seeing a girl who sort of throughout the process was very you could tell she just by body language she was nervous as in throughout the thing. So there's one thing being on stage, but then you can get a true representation of how people are, I guess, feeling in a situation by either watching the rehearsals or what they're doing when they're not on stage as well, kind of not necessarily sat on their own, but just body language tells you everything, doesn't it? And then I remember them coming back a couple of years last year, and just the difference in not, I wasn't even looking necessarily at them on stage, but the difference in how they were throughout the 2 days personally, as in like how they then now carried themselves, how they interacted. It's that for me is probably one of my favorite things about being involved in this very, very new world, like to me. So you must have seen some radical transformations over your years.
Absolutely. I say that it's a lot of things are the same and a lot of things are very, very different. Um, as I say, it's so much more based on your platform, the person that you are, kind of your charity raising, and what you stand for. So it is less physical based than people would appreciate. We all love, you know, the high heels, the beautiful dresses. You know, it's amazing to be in the room and to look at all the, well, it is for me, all the incredible dresses, usually not even one the same, to see everybody's performance, their stage presence, their deportment. But what it's really about is the person inside. So it's not about, you know, the thinnest, the fittest, the tallest, the shortest, the youngest. Hello. It really is about the person inside and what you have to say for yourself.
And was that the same back when you were competing originally between that 10-year period? Or have you seen that hugely shift from it being very much more aesthetic based to or has it always been there?
I think it was more aesthetic based. I'm not going to lie, but the actual person did still matter. You would still interact, still have an interview. You would still interact with the other girls. So wasn't purely based on just physical appearance. It was always had scores for stage presence, and personality. You always had that balance, but now even more so. You know, now it is so much more inclusive. I am a perfect example of that, given that I'm Miss Great Britain Classic, which is for the over 45s. Nothing like that existed whatsoever. So it's definitely more inclusive of abilities, disabilities, of ages, of sexual orientation. Not that I think it was ever a fear. It wasn't highlighted somebody's sexual preference or their gender. It was simply girls were there. But
Yeah.
now it is, they are subjects that are spoken about widely rather, so that representation can be seen and other people would feel that they are represented and that they can do that too.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to the tagline that myself and Saf put on the Miss Great Britain pageant is celebrating the diversity in women's excellence. So what does that kind of mean to you?
Well, I read that the other day for the first time, and I thought that's absolutely amazing because it is diversity of in excellence, as in we're all excellent in our own unique ways, and that what defines my sense of success, excellence, achievement isn't the same as what somebody else would define as their sole success. So I think it is celebrating each woman for their uniqueness and their individuality. So I think it's an absolutely wonderful tagline phrase. I read it and I was like, that's amazing. That really is.
Oh no, I love that answer. That's wicked. It really is. I want to move to now. So how was your well, actually we'll go to how has your preparation process changed since what you were doing back then to what you're doing now, so we can incorporate that into some tips and what have you, particularly for women who want to come back and do the classic, or sometimes it can be quite tricky, having spoke to some of the girls, moving from being a miss to a ms and a ms to a classic. So we'll talk about that kind of journey in a second, but what brought you back?
Well, I was contacted by Sally Ann Fawcett. We have been kind of online, I wouldn't say friends, contacts for a few years because Sally is, we call her the pageant Bible. She's
Pageant
written
Bible.
pageant Bible. She's written books on pageants. She's very interested. So she had contacted me as a previous holiday princess winner, as well as many other girls, not just me. For kind of photos or stories that she could use in her publications. I think she has 4 published books, all available at good bookstores.
On Amazon.
Um,
Have you got an affiliate link?
no, I'm definitely not on commission. So she had contacted me back in maybe 2021, maybe, saying, "Oh, Nicholl, the Miss Great Britain are actually opening up a classic section for the over 45s. You absolutely, need to do it again. You need to go back on the stage." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "Oh, I don't think so." I hadn't done any kind of, well, anything like this for the last 25 years. I'd had a very serious career in financial services for 10 years, and then I've been a mum for 10 years. So it was completely out of my kind of, I wouldn't say comfort zone. I still always love makeup and nice dresses and things like that. And
It just
I
wasn't on your radar.
being on stage. Um, but it was very much removed from what my life was. So, and I must admit, I was a bit like, oh, is it a bit self-indulgent? Is it a bit cheesy? Is it a bit naff? I am 50. I think I was 50 at the time. So I really wasn't sure. However, I obviously had an inkling or had an interest. I actually asked my mum, my 2 sisters, and obviously my mum was like, yes, 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 do it, do it, do it. And both of my sisters, my older sister in particular, she had said, well, I think that would be an incredible way to celebrate your 50th year. And I was like, it's a good point. So I didn't enter, but what I did do is mum and I we bought tickets and we came to watch the what year am I? So like 2021, 22. So we came to watch at Leicester at the finals in October.
So Eden, Kat and Kirsty, right?
Yes, Eden, Kat and Kirsty won. So, and it was just blown away by not just the people on the stage and what they had to say for themselves, but everybody in the audience as well. I mean, there's like, what, 300, 400 people watching.
Oh, way more than that this year.
Is that?
We're sold out of dining tickets at 400 already.
They go quickly. They go
Yeah, within the
quickly.
first week. Yeah, so
my family and friends got in there quick, so we're going.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just loved it. I mean, what can I say? It was definitely like stepping back in time a little bit. I still wasn't sure. I said, I know I would love being on the stage. I know I would love that when I watched it. I said, but I still need to kind of do my research as to what it actually means now.
Mhm.
Because again, I'm very much I don't like to do things half-hearted. I like to know what I'm getting myself into, so that if I'm going to say I'm going to do it, I'm absolutely going to put my all into it. So I went, kind of connected with a few people online, watched a few things, watched the other queens from other systems, kind of what they do, how they represent themselves. And I thought, you know what, I think I want to do it. So yeah, I put my application in, and I
When
was
was this?
confirmed as a finalist.
What time
So
of year was it?
so the finals were in the October. I put my application in the December. So it didn't take me that long.
So we'd only just taken over then at that point,
Yes,
isn't it right?
yes.
Right,
I think I put the application in just before yourself and Saffron were announced.
got you.
So it was the December.
And then you wanted to withdraw it.
Oh, not at all. I was announced as a finalist in the February, and I was like, right, let's just go for it. And I just enjoyed. I had done. I think one of the things that I was a bit cautious about was, although I have socials, I've never really promoted myself on them or really put myself forward. And again, charity fundraising, I've actually always done it. I've worked for Look Good Feel Better. So I work as a hair and makeup artist. I mainly do weddings. Look Good Feel Better are a charity that looks after, they do kind of classes for women that are coming out of cancer treatments that may have lost, their hair, their eyebrows, their confidence, and your skin changes after chemo, can be a lot more sensitive. So it's teaching those women how to feel good about themselves. One of the main things that they ask is how to draw on a natural brow.
Mhm.
So I've done those classes, I've raised charity funds, but I've never really shouted out loud about it.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, do I really want to put myself out there on social media, essentially for other people to form an opinion of me? And then I had a word with myself, and I thought, I never cared what people thought about me at 15. So why would I care what they think about me at 51? So I just went for it. Yeah.
That's great.
And I started off in the March. I did the cancer research cold water challenge. I hate being cold, but I doused myself in cold water every day for a month. People were really, really generous. I think I raised about £700. Um, and I got a lot more positive comments than I thought I would do.
Mhm.
I'm sure that some people may not appreciate or understand what I'm doing, but again, that's not for me. I've never been a one to worry myself about other people's opinions of me.
And I suppose back back then, when you competed the first time around, there was no social media. So the first time anybody saw anything was when it was in the papers, and that was that. There was no comments box, there was no likes or hates, or the trolls were the ones down the pub that were talking about things over a bar. Very, very different landscape today. Very different.
Completely, completely
Um,
different.
I mean, do you sort of almost a side question? Do you navigate much hate or trolling or anything like that on? Have you come across any of that kind of thing?
No, not. I've had none at all. None at all. The only
Fantastic.
comments I've had have been positive. Where were we the other day? So the other week, I think I was out shopping with my girls. We're in a clothing store, and one of the school mums, who her son had already moved up to senior, so I haven't seen her for a while. She came running up to me and she was like, "Oh my goodness, Nicole, congratulations! Oh, I think it's amazing." She was with her husband, and she was like, I had like no makeup on. I mean, like baggy linen trousers, and she was like, "Come on over, it's Nicole, it's Miss Great Britain." I was like, "Miss Great Britain, classic." And she was like, "Oh, I think it's amazing." She said, "You've really inspired me." She said, "If you can do it, I can. I've made more of an effort, blah, blah, blah." And I was just a bit taken aback. I don't think anybody's actually come up to me with that much enthusiasm. So that was actually lovely to hear. Really nice to hear. For me, I've been a mum for 10 years, and majority of my life, that is my main job. Is I'm a mum to my 2 daughters. I do the school runs every day. Um, so my my life is a bit more kind of mum bun, jeans, flat shoes. So this has been a real contrast. And it's, just a lovely way to celebrate that it doesn't matter your age. What matters is that you seek out, the things that make you happy. You seek out joy in your life. My platform last year was Happiness Habits, and it is really all about that, which is about seeking out growth, seeking out joy, and practicing each day those small daily habits that bring you happiness. And that really comes from my mum. That comes from, it didn't have a name, but that kind of feeling of, we celebrate the good things that we have, not the things that we don't. We're grateful for things we have. That's always been kind of taught to me by my mum throughout my life. And it's something I truly believe in. And this has, for me, my daughters have loved it. They're actually coming to the finals this year. They couldn't make it last year. So they will see me on stage hand over. They've helped choose my dress. So yeah, it's a real family affair. And actually doing the Miss Great Britain and we've been back in the pageant land world. My mum has come to most things that I've done, and it's been a wonderful experience sharing that time, that one-to-one time with her, because we obviously don't get as much one-to-one time as we did when I was a lot younger.
That's interesting. You pretty much read my mind, because my next question was, what is it giving you back, or what have you found this time around that coming back to pageants has given you, which you've kind of just answered, to be fair, in a really nice way without me even having to ask. What have you done differently this time around in terms of preparation that has differed from what you did beforehand? Because assumedly you prepared before you went into the pageants and competing back then. So now, have you done anything different? Because what I want to do is just to segue into like some tips and what have you, particularly for people who are perhaps looking at coming straight into classic, having been a pageant contestant beforehand, sort of in the same area.
I would love to see some of the girls that I used to compete with in the 80s and 90s come back. That would just be the best. I'm also connected with some of the ladies that used to compete before me as well, in the 70s, in the 60s. There is each year, there's a big reunion of old beauty queens.
Well,
Old in both ways, in age and as also. I would absolutely adore to see some of their ladies back on the stage, because what it has given to me, really, it's, my life realistically is more about others. It's about putting my children first, my children, my family, my husband. And this really is something for me.
Mhm.
It really, although everybody has got on board, everybody's enjoying it, I would say that everybody has benefited from it. If I can go back to my first charity fundraise that I did, the Cold Water Challenge, after about 4 or 5 days, my eldest daughter Emily said to me, "Mummy, if we get in there as well, can we fundraise?" And I was like, oh. So it isn't just, even though I did it for me, I did it for a sense of who I am as an individual. I don't think I've ever lost myself, but this is definitely pushing me forward for sure. But that doesn't mean that I don't do all of the rest as well. It's just another part of my life now. But to be that example for my children, that you do put yourself first, and that you also do things for others, such as the charity fundraising, the charity awareness, but that most important, your happiness habits must come first, because if you're not happy, then everything around you really can't be a true reflection of who you are.
No, for sure. What's been your favorite thing that you've done throughout your reign?
Oh, I'm trying to think. It's probably, we did so much. think in the January the 1st, wasn't it? We did the London New Year's Day parade.
Yeah.
So that was just, it was surreal, because again, it was kind of going back. I mentioned earlier about every little village, every little town had their own carnival queen, and you used to do this summer procession waving, and we actually did that in central London. I'm from like a small little town in the northeast, and here I am in London going down like Pall Mall,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh hi, and that was really bizarre. And again, it was so well received. It was so well received. And just before we started, a couple came up to me, and the guy was like, "Oh, this is my wife." Really sorry, I can't remember her name. She was Miss Great Britain 1971. I was like, "Oh my god, that was the year I was born. Please come back. Please
Just made her feel really old. Made her feel really, really old.
So that was wonderful for the experience. And myself and the two other queens, Amy and Charlotte, we did in the summer, we did a charity fundraising pool party. So we did a Barbie pool party, which obviously is massively on trend
Mm.
with one of the biggest movies of the year. We hit really lucky. We also got the hottest day of the year as well. So we raised in total just over £1,500 for our charities, Alex's Wish and Cancer Research. So again, that kind of feeds the soul that yes, we had fun, but that money will be used to make a difference in other people's lives.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and again, it needs to be spoken about more. Just the correlation between pageantry and charity. Just the amount that's given back is ridiculous. And I think we're on track actually to beat last year already, and we've not even got to the final yet for Alex's Wish and for Cancer Research. So there's so much good done in all areas, and that's a real point of really kind of doing the podcast as well, is so people who maybe don't understand it and people who do understand it can listen like to this and just maybe pull some things out that's going to really hopefully shift them towards seeing things in a different light. I think that's what I would like it to I'd really like it to do. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you would like me to ask you?
No, I don't think so. I think I was just quite prepared to come on, and we said let's just talk about it and see where the conversation takes us. Really, I
And
think we
have
covered quite a lot of subjects about why I did it, what it's given me, why I think it's a positive thing for women to do, and the charity fundraising and the platforms that everybody supports.
what one question I do have for you is what do you think the pageant world could do better?
Oh, I think definitely being able to get the message across of how much good is done with everybody's platform, raising awareness of their different platforms, charities, the amount that we raise. And I know that that is already being done, but it's difficult to get a lot of coverage because it is definitely in the mainstream media. It's definitely seen as possibly an archaic, not particularly PC thing to be doing, whereas the reality of it is very much the opposite. I'm delighted, see, on a personal and general kind of note, that there are different age divisions, that there really is a system and a title for everyone. I love the Miss Great Britain, the 3-tier age system. So you have the Miss, which is 18 to 30, the Ms, which is 30 to 45, you know this, and the Classic, which is 45 and over. So it's purely driven by age. And I love that it's not, I think Charlotte did touch on it. I have watched, obviously, Charlotte and Kat's podcast that they did with you. Charlotte touched on that it isn't defined by children and marriage, that it is just purely based upon your age. I would definitely like to see a movement in some other systems, but towards that. But of course, everybody has the choice to choose. As I say, there is a system for everybody, really. It's amazing how I've only been back in this world for less than 2 years, and I can look at girls and think, oh, she'd be suitable for. I kind of know the personalities almost of some of the different titles. I'm like, oh, she should go to this one, or she should go to that one. She just by the aura, by, you know, Miss Great Britain. I think you had said on another podcast, is kind of more like the ultimate girl next door.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been that way. Like, a really, sounds like really nice girls. Like, I can remember one of my favorite women that I used to compete with back in the 80s and 90s was called Gillian Bell. She actually came to the finals last year, so I got to hug her and go, oh my god, Gillian. She had won Miss Great Britain in whatever year it was. And I loved her. She was fantastic on stage, but she was such a lovely, lovely soul. So it was amazing to reconnect with her. She came to watch last year. That was amazing. And I say amazing a lot. One of the loveliest things she did, she sent me a video. So when you're on stage and it's that nervous moment where you're holding hands and they're about to announce the winner, she actually filmed my family rather than me. I'm going to film
That's great.
video of their reaction to me winning, and I was like, that's so incredibly thoughtful, because she's done that for me. She's not done that for herself. And that kind of just demonstrates, if you like, the sisterhood that's always been there. You know, Gillian probably won in their mid or late 80s.
Awesome. Lovely. Great. And do you know what? That's a great place to end, I think. And I'm sure when we go back over this episode, there's probably a big part 2 to do as well. So to get you back on for a part 2 would be fantastic. So Nicholl, thank you very much for being our guest on season 1, episode 3, with the lovely Nicholl Moss, who is our Miss Great Britain Classic for 22-23. Where can people find you finally? What's your Instagram handles, or where would you like people to find you?
My Instagram handle is Mrs. Great Britain Classic 2023.
Well, that's easy to find.
Easy to find.
Ace, guys, thank you very much for listening. Please like, subscribe, do whatever you need to do, hit the bell and all the rest of it. And if you'd like to, please share it with other people, particularly if you know people who would like to actually get involved, not just only in the Miss Great Britain system, but in the pageant world in general. So share that out for us, and that would be fantastic. So until the next episode, thanks all, and have a great rest of the day.